Good day, friends. Welcome to Our Power is Within. I'm your host, Chasmith, aka Just Chaz, and I am on a mission to inspire people to take their power back and help people to realize that each and every one of us has a healer within our own self. When we can create an environment that supports healing and get out of our own way, we are truly capable of healing in mind, body, and soul. Whether you've been following along this whole time or if this is your very first episode, thank you for being on this journey with me. And if you feel called to help me spread the message of empowerment, healing, and possibility, please consider leaving a review on Apple Podcast or a 5-star rating if and only if I've earned it, or share your favorite episode on social media or with a friend. Your support helps me so much and is greatly appreciated. Okay. So we've made it to week 5 of our self-love language challenge. Woohoo! I really hope that you guys have been following along and learning a bunch about your relationship with yourself and how you love being loved along the way. Maybe you're learning some new fabulous ways to love yourself. This week is quality time. So it is all about that good quality time that you spend with you. Yes, you. Spending some quality time with yourself. What does that even look like? Well, as usual, the options are endless, but my guess it will look different for everyone depending on what quality means to each of you and what you enjoy. So maybe this week you take yourself on dates, or you set time aside in your calendar to do your inner work and get to know yourself better. Maybe it's doing some activity that fills you up or brings you joy. I mean, it could honestly be anything at all, as long as it's quality time that you spend with you. I encourage you, as usual, to get creative and explore possibilities and discover something new about what that means to you this week. And on today's episode, I think we have a really fun treat. Our guest today is Brad Yates. He is very well known in the tapping community with thousands of tapping videos on YouTube that you can follow along with. I absolutely loved today's chat with Brad so much. Even though I've been personally incorporating tapping for quite some time now in my practice, I learned so much from Brad today. We learn about why tapping might be working. We learn about traditional tapping scripts and ways we can shift the script to work for us, and how supportive tapping can actually be as a tool combined with other healing tools and modalities such as brain retraining. So also, stay tuned until the very end because Brad actually is going to lead us through an absolutely wonderful tapping practice to help us shift into our magnificence. And make sure to check out his YouTube for endless tap-along options. Some of my absolute favorites are on his channel. With that said, let's get to it. All right, you guys, we have Brad Yates as our guest today. Brad is a he's well known in the healing community and the energy community as an EFT tapping coach. And for anyone out there who's not familiar with EFT, it stands for the Emotional Freedom Technique, which is gaining popularity in the brain rewiring program community as well right now. Brad has thousands of YouTube videos online for you to access for free that you can tap along to, which I find to be really wonderful references. And so with that said, welcome Brad to the show and thank you for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to go ahead and start out the conversation by asking how you actually found yourself getting involved in tapping.
Yeah. How does a grown man find himself tapping on his face for a living? I started out as an actor and had traveled the world doing theater, went to Hollywood to be a movie star, as one does. And when I was there, I met a woman and fell in love and got married. And when our first child was on the way, I thought I should probably have a backup career. And rather than getting a standard 9-to-5 kind of job, I trained to become a hypnotherapist because I'd always been fascinated with the power of the mind. So I started doing that, building a small practice while also pursuing my acting career. And then after a couple of years, when our second child was on the way, I realized that as much as I loved acting, doing personal development work was really my calling. It's really where I felt the most fulfilled, where I felt the best use of my talents. And So we left Los Angeles and moved to Northern California. And through some other hypnotherapists, I heard about this this energy psychology conference going on in Las Vegas where they're doing this tapping thing. And I thought, ooh, that sounds interesting. Got to check that out. And had the privilege of taking a workshop with Gary Craig, the founder of EFT. And what really sold it for me was when he had us tapping on chocolate cravings. And he gave everybody a piece of chocolate and said, okay, now scale is 0 to 10. How much do you want this? And I'm like, 8, 9. I was a bit of a chocoholic at the time. And after just a few moments of tapping, I had as much interest in the chocolate as I did the foil wrapper. I couldn't eat it. Didn't eat chocolate for 2 years after that.
What?
So, yeah. Now, don't worry. I recovered. I got better. But
I need that tapping script.
Maybe that's what we tap on. So little by little, I started incorporating that into my hypnotherapy sessions after that conference. And then I later had the privilege of assisting Gary at a couple of workshops. And little by little, tapping became my main technique. And I still use a little bit of hypnotherapy in my sessions. But that was the main thing for me at that point. And then YouTube came along. And I had this idea that, hey, wouldn't it be really cool if there was a tapping video that people could start their day with? And I'll call it Tap of the Morning. And then that'll be fun. And then put that up. And that was all I ever intended to do. I had no plans of a YouTube channel with 1,000 videos. It was like just that one video. And it was 6 months later that I thought, I should have a tap of the evening for people to end their day with. And then I'm done. And then another idea came and another idea. And now here we are.
Wow. How long ago did you first get into tapping?
2000.
Oh my gosh, a really long time.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it existed that long. That's amazing. Isn't it crazy how certain things are around, but they kind of just suddenly gain massive popularity and come out of the woodwork years later?
Absolutely. It'll be interesting to see what happens because just over in the last few days, an interview with Meghan and Harry came out in which Meghan said that she uses tapping.
I'm not sure who Meghan and Harry are.
Oh, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle.
Oh, okay. I'm not up to date on these kinds of things. I think I'm too immersed in, one sector.
The royals who left the royal family and moved to America.
Oh, interesting. Awesome. Okay. Wow. So 2000, and you used to do the hypnotherapy, which is super awesome, but now you're pretty much leaning more towards the tapping with a little bit of hypnotherapy integrated.
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so as far as, you've got 21 years of experience with tapping under your belt, for clients. And my guess is also for yourself. I mean, you're doing it for yourself as you're making these, thousands of videos.
Yes.
So what have been some of the benefits that you've personally received from tapping?
Well, one of the main benefits for me was it's allowed me to allow more success in my life. Because prior to this, back when I was an actor, not so much. And I was, say, chronically underemployed. And so I have allowed myself to experience more success, more money. It's been beneficial in health in a number of ways, physical, emotional, mental health. The tapping is all good for those things. So I enjoy my life quite a lot now, more than I did back back before I was introduced to this.
That is awesome. And as far as all the clients that you've helped, has there been any significant benefits you've seen from clients? Anything that's just like, wow, that's amazing to witness that?
It's always amazing to see just how people feel better in a short amount of time. There are some where, someone who, like a woman who had an event that had happened 20 years earlier that still brought her to tears when she thought about it. And in a matter of minutes, she's laughing about it. And it's like, yeah, that's not troubling anymore. Couldn't, thinking about it, talking about it, couldn't get upset about it. And So think memories like that, memories of people who have had really upsetting events happen in their childhood, and sometimes after a few minutes, it's like, wow, it's like watching a movie now. It's happening to somebody else. And I'm not going to say it doesn't always happen that way. Some issues take much longer to process. We always feel somewhat better. We always feel at least a little more relaxed because tapping is primarily a stress relief technique. I mean, there's all kinds of benefits, physical and emotional, from doing this process of stimulating these points around the body. But if you thought of it as nothing more than stress relief, when you realize that most, if not all, of the issues that trouble us are either caused by or worsened by stress, then you can see how the tapping can be beneficial in so many things. So we live in stressful times. We carry around little devices that are constantly telling us things that we should be upset about. So we always have this ambient level of stress, more than we're aware of. And most of us don't have a way of doing anything about that. We have physical hygiene. We brush our teeth and take showers usually before we need it. We usually do it as a maintenance thing. We don't wait until people are holding their nose around us and go, right, now I should go get clean. But with stress, most of us don't have anything that we use for that. And so when a lot of times I'll be tapping with folks who were saying they're feeling great, and after tapping, it's like, oh, I feel even better now. I didn't realize my shoulders have dropped.
Yeah, yeah. One of the common, I know one of the common, I don't want to call it, not the symptoms, not the right word, but just things that sometimes happens often for people in tapping is the yawning,
Yes.
which is a releasing of stress response. And I know that for me, it doesn't matter what topic I'm tapping on. I still get the benefit of like my body relaxing. So if I'm noticing I'm a little maybe tense or maybe a little bit of that kind of anxious energy moving through my body, I don't have to go and find a tapping video on that anxiousness. I can do a tapping video on something completely different, and yet I still find that tension in my body release.
Excellent point. You can be tapping along with somebody else, while somebody else is tapping, and still get what we call borrowed benefits. Because as you're tapping along, even if the words don't seem to resonate, we're still, through the tapping, calming down what's going on inside of us. And then the mind also has an amazing ability to make correlations that will say, okay, this isn't quite right, but this does remind me of this, bring up something that's been stressful, and then start clearing that out. And we can even tap while saying prayers or singing songs. Saying affirmations is a great way to do tapping, and just even silently, because without words, it's still lowering the stress that might be there.
Yeah, yeah. When at the very beginning, when I was introducing you, I had made a note how this has been getting really popular in the brain rewiring programs, like the
Mm-hmm.
community of brain retrainers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how familiar you are with like DNRS or Gupta, or do you know what those are?
I don't have a lot of familiarity with. No.
Okay, so yeah, they're just programs that are designed specifically for rewiring the brain, and then the people who tend to gravitate to them are um, generally suffering from some forms of chronic pain and or chronic illness.
Mm.
And so yeah, as this has been really making its rise in that community, it's been a tool that people have been using, because you were making mention how you can tap along in prayer and things. And so we do these like visualizations or self-guided meditations, and in DNRS we call them rounds. And so a lot of us have been experimenting with tapping as we guide ourselves through our rounds, which has been really awesome.
Excellent. Yeah, I think it's a great integrative process. I love doing it with other techniques.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems to go really well hand in hand with many other forms of any kind of tools and modalities in the healing community for,
Yep.
Mind, body, and soul.
Yep.
Could you explain a little bit about the science behind why tapping does create that stress relief response?
Yeah, and we still don't have a definitive answer. There are a lot of theories. Originally, tapping was based on acupuncture, And it was the Chinese medicine that's been around for thousands of years, where there's a flow of energy through the body along these pathways called meridians. And when the energy is flowing naturally, we experience our natural state of health and well-being, physically and emotionally. And when the energy gets stuck, we don't feel so good. So in traditional Chinese medicine, the doctor would stick needles in these key points along the meridians to stimulate that healthy flow of energy. And we're stimulating it with our fingertips. Now we also have scientific evidence that it is uh, lowering cortisol levels, one of the stress hormones. So it's down-regulating that stress response from the amygdala, letting us know that, putting us into fight or flight. So the one of the theories is that the tapping on these points, it's a phenomenon called piezoelectricity, where by applying the pressure, it creates an electrical signal that gets sent into different parts of the brain to calm down stress and things that are going on there. There are theories about how it affects the polyvagal system, the vagus nerve, which regulates emotions in the body. So we have a number of ideas about the exact mechanism, and they may all be in play, but we definitely have a growing body of scientific evidence showing that it is effective. As the studies lowering the cortisol levels, we have fMRI studies where you can see the brain scan, see where the brain activity is lighting up, and then how that changes after the tapping. And this is done in double-blind studies so that we can see that the tapping is a significant component, that it's not the other things that are going on at the same time.
That's so awesome. And do you, in your experience, so we're tapping, so it's kind of like acupressure in a sense, right?
It is, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's one form. But acupressure can also be applying or holding the pressure gently and or kind of rubbing. So do you know if people were to like more rub those spots or gently hold pressure there, would it have the same impact as the tapping, or is the tapping really where they're seeing the results?
However we stimulate them is beneficial. And I have encouraged people at times, depending on what's going on for them, because for some folks, tapping might be, if they're very sensitive, the tapping might be bothersome.
Mm-hmm.
So I will encourage people to just hold the points or to gently rub the points in those situations. It may be more a matter of personal preference, the kinesthetic effect of the tapping that I like. It's got that drum beat that is very visceral.
Mm-hmm.
But however you stimulate those points is beneficial. And there are plenty of people who have found a lot of benefit simply from mentally tapping the points. And when we think about certain parts of our body, we can send electrical signals. When we want to bend our finger, we send an impulse and the finger bends. So it makes sense that we can likewise send an impulse to stimulate different places in the body, such as these tapping points.
I'm gonna have to experiment with that, because yeah, I also know that not to bring up the brain retraining program again, but some of the premise of behind the brain rewiring programs is that you're actually rewiring areas of the brain that have gotten cross-wired.
Yeah.
And so where your brain has like a stress response to something that's like a false response, like it really shouldn't be happening that way. Like maybe you have a hypersensitivity, and so your brain sees something as a threat. And so if you can actually have a physiological response in your body just by thinking of being susceptible to that trigger, if it's that powerful, then I imagine a focused thought, like you're saying, where you're imagining the tapping in each location, that could also have a pretty powerful effect.
Yeah. Our minds are pretty powerful.
They are. It's
more
so
powerful
amazing.
than we know, and that's the hopeful thing, but it's also the problem, because we don't recognize how often we're using that in unhealthy ways.
Right, exactly, because we could be using it in a very productive way, but sometimes unconsciously it's being used in a not so helpful way.
Yeah.
So other than the obvious and what we've kind of talked about, is there anything else about tapping that makes it your favorite thing? I mean, like, what is your favorite thing specifically about the tapping?
Wow, it's hard to say. It's when I'm doing it, like when I'm shooting videos or working with clients or doing workshops, I kind of get into a zone. It's a very intuitive process for me. And coming from an artistic background as a cartoonist, as an actor, it's a very creative process. So, and that was something that I was able to do. I think that's one of the reasons I was drawn to hypnotherapy. Is still as I do that, it's a very creative and intuitive process in terms of weaving a narrative. But I think what I like about one of the things I like about the tapping, especially if I have a live audience, is that they can respond more so than somebody who's in a hypnotic state. They're just not the best audience at that point, you know? So, and in the tapping, there's also sometimes a freedom to bring humor into it, which to me is the spoonful of sugar that helps the medicine go down, rather than just, oh, we're talking about sad things and painful things, tap, tap, tap. Oh, the misery, tap, tap, tap. Oh, the sorrow, tap, tap, tap. And it's like, why do I want to do this again? But there are times that it just levity just kind of flows in, and that can be extremely healing as well.
Right. Yeah. So, speaking of the creative intuitive process, how do you come up with script or dialogue when you are using tapping? I've always wondered, obviously you went to training and all that, and I'm curious, is there a pattern that you're taught to use, or something that you're supposed, like some kind of script you're supposed to follow, or is it really just organic?
Yeah, the very basic script of EFT is you identify what the problem is that you want to work on. Say, I'm really angry at Bob right now. Man, I'm angry at Bob. He really pissed me off. So you'd say, okay, on a scale of 0 to 10, how angry am I? And where am I feeling that physically? It's about an 8. I'm really angry and I'm feeling this tension in my shoulders. So we'd get clear on what it is. Then we'd start by tapping the side of the hand and saying, even though I'm angry at Bob, I choose to love and accept myself. Then you repeat that 3 times, that reminder phrase or setup phrase. Then the reminder phrase is this anger at Bob. So you go through tapping the eyebrow point. I'm so angry at Bob. Side of the eye, I'm so angry at Bob. And you say the exact same words on each point. Go through the 8 major points, take a deep breath, and then check in. It's like, okay, how are my shoulders doing? Oh, and sometimes it'll go from an 8 to a 0 like that. Sometimes it'll go from an 8 to a 7.75. And it's like, all right, now what's going on there? And when we're tapping, it's often like peeling the layers of the onion. So we may get more clear about, oh, it's not even, I'm not even angry at Bob so much as what he did reminded me of something that Cindy did to me in the 5th grade. And I'm still angry at Cindy. So I changed the wording to, even though I'm angry at Cindy, and use that basic. So even that as a basic script is very beneficial. The way I'm doing it, I like to be a little more exploratory and, go around and turning over all the rocks and seeing what might be going on in order to find where we can bring the disturbance up and then clear it. And I don't script them ahead of times. I know what the subject is that I'm going to tap about, and maybe I have another phrase or two, something like, okay, I want to include this at some point, but the rest of it comes through me, not from me.
Hmm. Okay. And so, is there really a wrong way to do this, or is there really just not a wrong way to do it?
Or Jack Canfield saying, "There's no wrong way to tap," and it's hard to get it wrong. There are going to be things that will be more effective, but any tapping that you do is beneficial. We're always lowering our stress while we're tapping, and if you feel drawn to saying something, go with it. Now, I encourage folks, if you're dealing with some really heavy stuff, probably best to work with somebody. It's not the tapping that causes distress. The tapping is lowering distress. It's the focusing on stuff that may not be safe to focus on by ourselves. So there have been, someone might be tapping and saying, "Oh, we were tapping about this subject and I got really upset and I should have been tapping on that." It's like that, it's not the tapping. It's that you were looking in boxes that you probably shouldn't have been looking in when you were on your own.
Mm,
Uh, the tapping, the tapping helps us look at things that we have been avoiding because it allows us to clear out the fear. There's so many things that are holding us back, but our mind says, "Yeah, but don't look at that. Don't even know about that. Just totally forget that that ever happened." And it's saying, pay no attention to the stuff behind the curtain. And tapping emboldens us because we're losing the stress response that keeps us from looking there. That's a great thing in terms of overall life freedom. But if the stuff behind the curtain is pretty heavy, then it's often best to have someone there to hold our hand.
right. Yeah. To kind of work through whatever might show up or come
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And, you know, okay, so there's not really, you have the basic kind of script, and then obviously there's a lot of room for creativity. And you're saying if it could be something really challenging for someone to work through alone, get help. But for anyone out there who's listening that is interested in what we're talking about today and they want to start experimenting with incorporating tapping into their life, what are some practical ways, like obviously they can follow along on videos, but if they want to write their or come up with their own script, what are some just practical ways that they could start coming up with that or incorporating it into their life?
Yeah, and that's why I started the doing the YouTube videos, was because people would often say, "Well, I don't know what to say." And I said, "All right,
Yeah.
well, here, let me say it for you, and then you'll get more comfortable with it, and you may find yourself saying different words, and that's great. It's never, when you watch this video, you need to say exactly what I'm saying, otherwise it won't work. No, it's and people, and I'll often get comments from people saying, "Hey, this was such a great video. I just changed this word to this." It's like, perfect. As you find
Yeah.
yourself drawn to doing something, then to saying something different, go with that. But if you're stuck saying, "Well, I don't know what to say," then just start a video. And as you were saying, you can watch a video that may not be the exact subject that's of what's going on for you, or even if you're not aware of what's going on, you could turn on any video. I like to think that, with the 1,000+ videos I have, you could watch any one of them, and even if it's about something that you think is not an issue for you, you will still be clearing stuff out. You'll be peeling layers of the onion, and you'll get either clear whatever might have been bothering you without even being consciously aware of it, or you'll become more consciously aware and say, this is what I need to do, and then find a video, or just make up your own words and just tap while talking about whatever's going on.
Okay. And what might be a good example of when somebody might want to use tapping if they've never played with it before? Like what would be like a scenario in someone's day where it might be like, hey, this is a good time to tap?
Whenever you're finding yourself experiencing a distressing emotion, anything that feels stressful, but also if you're find yourself stuck in anger or sadness or fear, and to me, fear is underneath all of the uncomfortable emotions. I don't believe there are negative emotions. All of the emotions are part of the human experience. They all have their reason, but some are less comfortable than others. Some we would rather spend more time in, and some we'd rather spend less time in. And that's why it's called emotional freedom techniques. It's allowing ourselves the freedom to move through an emotion rather than getting stuck in it. But you can also use it for having things be more positive. I start each morning with some tapping. It's not that I wake up in a bad mood each morning. It's that I just recognize that there is ambient stress, and I have many years of beliefs and programming that might not always be conducive to living my best life, that may just be there in a very subtle way. So I start the day off going, okay, I'm going to clear what's going on here. And I may not say any particular words. I may just tap silently, or I may say affirmations, things like, Thank you for the blessings that I have. Thank you for the blessings I am receiving. Something simple like that. And that just allows me to be in a more positive mindset and clearing any stress that might have been there that I might not have been really aware of.
Right. Yeah. And because, like you said, you can tap kind of along with so many different things. So you could start with your morning prayer and tap with it.
Right. And nothing's so good that it can't get better. And so we may be saying, I don't have anything to tap on. Things are okay. It's like, but you deserve better than okay. And so it's like,
Yes.
what stops it? So as we were saying, your shows, our power is within. We have, it's like the Marianne Williamson quote, our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. And we are powerful beyond measure. And most of us are barely scratching the surface of what's possible. So rather than waiting to, like with exercise, it's saying, okay, well, I'm not going to exercise until I'm in really bad danger of being really unhealthy. It's like, well, why not be as healthy as I can be?
Yeah.
And so in terms of feeling good emotionally and mentally, why would I just settle and go, well, I'm not feeling too crappy, so I don't need to tap. It's like, why not feel awesome?
Right. Yeah. It's like you said earlier with the brushing your teeth. I mean, it's being proactive, not reactive.
Yep.
I mean, you can use it reactively, but you can also use it proactively.
Yes. The best defense is a good offense.
Yeah. Absolutely. Do you tap with your family?
I have at times when kids were still here. Our kids are now grown up and have flown the coop. But we would occasionally do family taps. And my daughter did some tapping videos with me when she was younger. And then just a couple years ago as a young adult. And my wife is certified in EFT and has done that with clients as well.
That's so awesome. I love that. Everyone uses it in the family. When you're tapping, we're talking about reactive, proactive, and noticing, hey, I can use this just to feel great and upgrade, but I can also use this in response to emotions or certain issues that I want to work through. Do you find that people need to do this? Say if it is around a certain emotion or an issue, do you find that people need to do this multiple times in a row, or maybe several times throughout the day, or usually multiple days in a row, or is there really no rhyme or reason?
It really depends on the person. I definitely recommend tapping on a daily basis, like exercise, but some people are going to do 10 minutes of exercise a day. Some people exercise for 4 hours a day, depending on their goals and their lifestyle. It's like, how long should you wash your hands? Oh, I know in this past year they said 20 seconds, but it's but it depends. It's like, okay, have I been making bread and I've got some flour on my hands, or have I been working on my car and I've got grease on my hands? It's going to be a different amount of time to wash our hands, and so it'll depend on different times. People often ask, how many videos can I do? How long can I do them for? And can I do different videos? And I'll say, look, I've done live workshops where we tap all day long on a multitude of subjects. That's going to be, for some people, they're going to love that. Other people, it's like way too much. And it's really just a matter of experimenting and seeing. Some people are going to prefer to stick with one video over and over, and some people will find it more beneficial to tap with different videos or tap on different subjects on their own. And ultimately, all of these issues are interrelated in some way, shape, or form. So sometimes there's a lot of benefit in tapping on something different because it finds a nuance that we might not have found if we just stick on one thing.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. When you're tapping, can you get the benefits from tapping in just one spot versus tapping in all the points?
Great question. Yes. I don't know that anyone has done a study yet to find out, okay, if we just tap the eyebrow point versus tapping the eyebrow point and under the eye and the chin point, and when tapping was first discovered in this format, in the way that we're using it now by Dr. Roger Callahan back in around 1980, he developed these protocols where you would tap 2 to 3 points in different algorithms depending on the issue. And then one of his first students, Gary Craig, thinking like an engineer, said, well, rather than taking time to figure out which algorithms to use, what if we just tap all the points? And it takes less time to tap all the points than to try to figure out which 3 points in which sequence. So there are benefits to different points, but we may find at times that we're drawn to one particular point. And there are times where I'll just be tapping the collarbone point. It tends to be a key point for a lot of folks. It's the kidney point, and it's associated with fear. And as I said, I believe fear is underneath all of the other uncomfortable emotions. But there will be other times where I feel drawn to just tap another particular point. So I'll say to folks, if you're tapping along and your gut instinct is, hey, hang out on this point for a little bit, it's like, go with that. Just trust that instinct. And you may or may not need to tap any other points in that particular round. I encourage people to use all the points just in case, if you're not otherwise drawn to just tap one particular point. Unless there's that instinct to stick on one point, go ahead, cover all the bases and get the benefits of all the points. But yeah, you can get a lot of benefit from just tapping one particular point.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. In Dr. Howard Schuberner's book, Unlearn Your Pain, he has some exercises where it seems very similar. I'm not sure. What do you call that first, the opening statement where you're tapping on the karate chop point?
The setup statement.
Okay. So we basically do like a setup statement.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a very extended setup statement, and you only just tap on that point. And I find that that even that in and of itself seems to be really helpful.
Yeah.
If for nothing else, is a really good way to like break a pattern, like say if you're going into some type of pattern or something that you want to break out a rumination or something.
Pattern interruption. It's a huge or state change. There's a number of different names for that.
Mm-hmm.
And simply at that point, you're making a statement of intention. I'm not going down that rabbit hole. Mm-hmm. I am choosing to do something different here. And just that intention alone has great power.
Yeah. Yeah. You made a mention about the collarbone point, and you said it was associated with the kidney and with fear, or the kidney meridian, and then associated with fear. Do each of the points that we generally tap on have an association with something specific?
Right. They're all associated to different meridians. And those meridians tend to be associated with different organs of the body, and those organs tend to be associated with different emotions. Now, I understand that there are some people who argue about, well, no, this meridian is actually associated to this emotion, or that organ is associated to that feeling. So I don't tend to get stuck in that. It's like, hey, great. There are people who love to go deep into acupuncture and the origins of how it works and the points and the organs and things like that. For me, it's like, I'm just going to cover all the bases. There are occasions where I will use those. Another student of Roger Callahan's was a gentleman named Dr. Larry Nims, who developed another protocol of his own called Be Set Free Fast. And he would talk about certain emotions. So based on his work, I sometimes do a tapping round where we stay on a particular point, and I'll talk about the emotions. So the eyebrow point is associated with the bladder, which is associated with sadness or trauma. So I'll tap the eyebrow point saying, I'm now releasing all the sadness in this area. Side of the eye, gallbladder, is associated with anger. So I'm now releasing all of the anger and resentment. Under the eye, associated with the stomach, which is also associated with fear. So going through these different meridians and mentioning the emotions that are associated with that point, but to me, it's not absolute, such that I won't talk about another emotion on another point, and I just kind of go with how it's feeling. But there are times where I will stick to that. I will mention the emotion that's based on that point.
Mm. Where can we, if someone is really intrigued by this, where can we learn the rest of them, the rest of the points, just even the associated organs?
Well, so, and I can quickly say under the nose, which is the governing vessel, is the name of the meridian, is associated with embarrassment. Under the mouth, the chin point is the central vessel, which is associated with shame and guilt. Collarbone again, kidney associated with fear, and then under the arm is associated spleen, I believe. I may be blanking on that, but often associated with low self-esteem. And then the top of the head is where a number of meridians cross.
Oh, okay.
So we're covering a bunch of points when we tap around the top of the head.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I didn't even, yeah, for all the time I've been using tapping, I didn't know all that.
Yeah. And I have a video called Tapping with Be Set Free Fast, where I go through that process of mentioning the different emotions on the different points.
Okay. I might have to look that up and include it as a link for everyone listening. And speaking of Be Set Free Fast, what is the main difference between regular EFT and faster EFT?
I don't know a lot about the protocol. Faster EFT, it's not simply, well, it's EFT, but it's faster. it's just a different way of using the process, and that's the name that's given to it. But
okay, so but it is totally different, but not
totally different. And it's, even on my videos, I say this is not official EFT.
okay.
Because the way that Gary Craig is the founder of EFT does official EFT. So if you do anything slightly different, then it's not official EFT. And so that's why I clarified, and that's why a lot of us just call it tapping at this point. We are doing a process with tapping, and how we each use it is different. There are people who do it in a similar way to the way I do it, and then people who would never tap the way I tap, particularly the longer rounds. Some people just do one single round and don't do the free association wording. And to me, healing work is like music. There's a lot of different genres. You get your classical, your jazz, your rock. There are different instruments: guitar, bass, drum, saxophone, and then you've got different people who play them differently. So, Keith Richards can't say to Eric Clapton, "Oh, you play the guitar wrong." And some people are going to prefer the way Eric Clapton plays, and some people are going to prefer the way Keith Richards plays.
Right.
And some people can't tell the difference. So they just enjoy the music. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's an open, it's a very open area, and it's up to different folks as to the way they prefer the work done.
That makes sense. Awesome. So beside all these YouTube videos that you've made over the years, what else are you up to? And in what other ways are you supporting people in their tapping experience?
Well, I work with folks privately and in small groups. And hopefully soon we'll get back to doing live workshops. I've had the pleasure and privilege of working with folks in 8, 9 different countries now, I think.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And that, as a recovering actor, having a live audience like that is always my favorite thing to do. So I'm looking forward to the day that I'm able to do that again.
That's awesome. Hopefully sooner than later.
Yes.
Yeah. So in every script, usually at some point you will say, and I think that this is part of the originals, even the original official EFT from Gary Craig, but you'll say, even though fill in the blank. I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
Right. That's the standard setup phrase.
Hmm.
I reword it slightly. I say, even though I have this issue, I choose to love and accept myself,
Ah, yes.
because a lot of people have a hard time saying, I love and accept myself. So by saying I choose to love and accept myself creates this little buffer. It's I'm not proclaiming outright that I love myself when I feel like I don't, but I can say I choose to, I want to, so it feels safer for a lot of folks to say it that way. It doesn't say that I don't love myself. It just isn't committing to that in a way that creates this cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, that makes so much sense because a lot of times when you learn about just general affirmations, we learn that they can almost be counterproductive if it's something that at a deeper level you just truly don't believe, because it almost can make you feel, like you said the word safe, and it can almost make you feel at a deeper level or like a nervous system level unsafe, because you're
Right.
saying something that like inside in your subconscious mind is like, yeah, right, no you don't,
Yeah.
we don't feel that way, what are you talking about?
Which is why affirmations can be problematic, because
Hmm.
we often talk about this idea that the conscious mind is 5 to 10% of our mind, and the unconscious the other 90 to 95%. And so if I think I'm a loser, if my programming has told me I'm a loser, and I'm saying I'm a winner, that's 5 to 10% of me saying I'm a winner, and the other 90 to 95% reaffirming, who do you think you're kidding?
Yeah.
And so in saying that, it can almost be worse at some point, because I'm as I'm consciously trying to proclaim that I'm a winner, my body is getting more stuck in that idea that I'm a loser. Now, here's the thing. If you're tapping while saying it, you're breaking down that response, because deep down inside, we know we're a winner. I often talk about the Michelangelo principle. Michelangelo said, the statue is already there inside the marble. All I have to do is chip away what doesn't belong to reveal the masterpiece inside.
Mm,
That to me is a perfect analogy for what we're doing with tapping, because our best self is already inside, covered under this excess marble made up of shame and guilt and unworthiness and all these misunderstandings that have come from either our misinterpretations or other people's misunderstandings that they've put
right.
on us. So while if I'm saying I'm a winner and my unconscious mind is saying, no, you're a loser, underneath all that is a belief, an understanding that I am a winner, but it doesn't feel safe to acknowledge that. I have learned that if I try to say I'm a winner in the past, I got knocked down. So I have taken on this belief that I'm a loser as a way of keeping myself safe. And so that stress response comes up. When I try to say I'm a winner, that thing comes up and says, no, you're a loser. Please, please shut up. Don't say you're a winner. We're going to get hurt. And that fight or flight thing is going on. Now, as we tap, we're breaking down that response. We're calming our nervous system and allowing ourselves to remember, okay, I am safe. And yeah, you know what? I am awesome. I'm a magnificent child of the universe. And we're able to get to that. So that's why it can be really beneficial tapping while saying affirmations, because that affirmation will bring up the contrary thought and feeling, and then we can clear it.
Yeah, and I was thinking as you're explaining all that, I thought, oh my gosh, that's where the thoughts about your script or what you're going to say next might show up. Is you might go on to that next point, and you might acknowledge one of those thoughts that are like kind of fighting you on that
Yep.
statement, and then
Yep.
release, and then continue to release and clear.
Yeah. It's
Ah,
often like peeling the layers of the onion. So we might be tapping along. I'm a winner. I'm a winner. And the thought comes up. Remember in the third grade when Bill took your toy and said, you don't deserve this? And I may not consciously remember that. And it's like, oh, yeah. Ooh, now I can let that go. See you, Bill.
yeah. Oh, that's so good. I love it. Um, Other than everything we've already talked about and everything you've shared today, is there like if you had an overarching message that you are passionate about sharing with the world, what would it be?
Several years ago, it came to me that my real job was teaching people to love themselves and acknowledging how awesome they are. Because when we acknowledge how awesome we are far more likely to share our gifts and talents. And to me, that's why we're here. No one's here by mistake. No one here is an accident. We all bring something to the table. Most people are not bringing it to the table, though, or at least not to the extent that they could, because of old beliefs about not being good enough, not being worthy, not being lovable. And it's not to beat ourselves up for that, because self-sabotage is simply misguided self-love. When we stop ourselves from being successful in our careers, with our physical health, in our relationships, it's not because we're bad or stupid. It's because some old programming tells us that it's not safe. And so we are brilliantly stopping ourselves from creating a situation that we've learned isn't safe. And so rather than beating ourselves up, which is also brilliant, because if I sabotage my career by it's like if I decide, oh, I'm gonna write a book, and then I go through a whole week, it's like I didn't write anything, and now I have to beat myself up. I'm so stupid. I'm such a loser. I was going to write this week and I didn't write at all. See, now, because part of me is afraid to write the book, so now the time that I spend beating myself up is more time that I can't spend writing. So I still get to spend more time protecting myself from the outcome of writing. So it's recognizing, oh, even when I'm beating myself up, that's me just protecting myself, and then knock it off.
That's such a good point. Oh my gosh, I love it. Oh my goodness, that's a really good. I'm also, I just wanted to let you know, extremely passionate about inspiring people to love themselves, to learn, because it's so true what you say. That is how we get to show up for the rest of the world. Yeah. Okay, so I know we were going to do a little short tapping example, and we're getting close to our time here. But before we get into the tapping example or sample, how can people connect with you if they want to learn more?
Thank you. Simplest way is to go to my website. That's sort of the hub for everything, tapwithbrad.com. And also it's Tap with Brad on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and Twitter.
Okay, so you're on all the major platforms.
All the major platforms.
Tap with Brad.
My daughter signed me up on TikTok, but I haven't been able to create a 1-minute tapping video yet.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that may be just one point. Talking in fast speed.
One of the key things is trying to give people enough time between the statements.
Right.
And it's like, well, if I give them time between the statements, we're going to get 2 phrases out.
Yeah. Fair enough.
That's the next challenge for me. That's the next horizon.
Well, I will make sure to put links in the show notes for all of these wonderful ways for people to connect with you.
Thank you.
And then maybe we could finish off our dialogue with a nice little tapping sample.
Absolutely.
Okay. So then the floor is yours for you to walk all of us through it.
All right. So let's go along with that idea. So this idea of how awesome we are and how we stop ourselves from knowing that, because that plays into the power within, and recognizing the awesome power that's in there, and how we stop ourselves from that. So everybody go ahead and close your eyes, unless you're driving. Take a deep breath in and hold it, and let it go. Now, just breathing comfortably with your eyes closed, go ahead and feel yourself present, allowing yourself to be right here, right now. Maybe imagine looking in a full-length mirror and say, "You're awesome." And just allow yourself to be aware on a scale of 0 to 10 how true that feels, or how safe it feels to say that. And don't judge yourself harshly if the number is lower than you'd like it to be. It's not that you're wrong or bad or stupid. It's just that programming has confused you about how awesome you are. Just allowing yourself to be aware of where you might feel that in your body. Notice what thoughts, beliefs, or memories might come up as to why you couldn't or shouldn't acknowledge how awesome you are. Take a deep breath, open your eyes. And I'll mention where to tap. If you're not sure of the tapping points, you can check them out later. For right now, just go ahead and guess. And actually, I'll mention them as we go through the first round. So starting with, we're using the fingertips of our index and middle finger, starting with your dominant hand and tapping on the edge of your opposite hand, right between your wrist and your pinky. And just repeat after me. Even though I sometimes doubt my awesomeness, I choose to love and accept myself. Even though I sometimes doubt my awesomeness, I choose to love and honor myself. Even though I sometimes doubt my awesomeness, I sometimes say that I'm not that great. And I may have a lot of reasons for that. And even though I sometimes doubt my awesomeness, I choose to deeply and completely love, honor, and accept myself, and maybe anyone else involved. Now tapping the eyebrow point, so right at the beginning of your eyebrow, right near the center of your face. All these doubts about my awesomeness. Follow your eyebrow out to the corner of your eye. All these doubts about my awesomeness. And going around the edge of the eye socket to right under the middle of your eye, just above your cheek. I sometimes doubt my awesomeness. Now right under your nose, just above your upper lip. Maybe I often doubt my awesomeness. Right below your lower lip, just above your chin. Maybe I doubt my awesomeness all the time. Collarbone, if you feel your collarbones just about meet, there's a little U shape at the base of your throat. You can use your fist and tap that whole area right there. Part of me might be saying, I'm not awesome at all. Now, it's about 4 inches below your armpit. It's right about bra strap level, and I'm sure even the guys listening can figure out where that is. Tapping right there and say, all these doubts about my awesomeness. On the top of the head, so using all of your fingertips and tapping around little circles around the crown of your head. All these reasons why I doubt my awesomeness. Eyebrow point. All the ways that I tell myself. Side of the eye. I'm not that great. Under the eye. All this fear of thinking that I'm awesome. Under the nose. Maybe I'm afraid that if I thought I was awesome. Under the mouth. I'd have no excuse for things not being better in my life. Collarbone. Maybe I'm not happy about everything in my life. Under the arm. And so part of me might say, top of the head, well, I couldn't expect anything better. Eyebrow point. Better lives are for better people. Side of the eye. And I'm just not one of them. Under the eye. And I am lying to myself when I say that. Under the nose. Because deep down inside, Onto the mouth. I know how freaking awesome I really am. Collarbone. I know how powerful I really am. Onto the arm. And part of me is afraid of knowing that. Top of the head. If I allowed myself to be more awesome. Eyebrow. People might expect more from me. Side of the eye. If they think that I'm less awesome. Onto the eye. Life seems so much easier. Onto the nose. But it's not all that I deserve. Onto the mouth. The truth is. Collarbone. I am a magnificent child of the universe. Onto the arm. Worthy and deserving of the best this world has to offer. Top of the head. And I've barely scratched the surface of how awesome I am. Eyebrow point. And I love and forgive those parts of me. Side of the eye. That have learned to doubt my awesomeness. Onto the eye. As a way of keeping me safe. Onto the nose. It hasn't felt safe to believe I'm awesome. Onto the mouth. And maybe a lot of people have told me that I'm not awesome. Collarbone. I'm allowing myself to acknowledge that they were wrong. Onto the arm. And I'm giving myself the freedom to embrace my awesomeness. Top of the head. So that I can share that in body, mind, and spirit. And take a deep breath. Close your eyes. Go ahead and look in that full-length mirror again and say, you are awesome. And noticing how true that feels. Hopefully that number has come up. For some, it may come way up. For others, it may be gradual. And again, it may be a matter of peeling layers of the onion, and you may have remembered certain events in your life that seemed to prove that you were less than awesome. And you're not unawesome because of unfortunate things you've done in your life. You have done unfortunate things in your life because you were forgetting how awesome you are. The more awesome you allow yourself to know that you are, the less you're going to be doing things that are harmful to you and others.
I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you for all of your wisdom and everything that you're doing in the world to help the entire consciousness by helping other people who can then step into their brilliance and help more people. And thank you for being here with me today and sharing your wisdom. And thank you for that beautiful gift you just shared with us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me on. I greatly appreciate this opportunity to share this work, especially with folks who may not have been familiar with it. And thank you for all the great work you're doing.
Yes. All right, friends, that is a wrap. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I hope you are feeling calmer and more magnificent than ever through that tap along with Brad. I know I do. I was smiling all day after that one. Anyhow, remember that this week is all about you and quality time well spent with you. And until next time, make this week great.